Round 44,017 to the nearest thousand. So this is the thousands place. So we look at the place just before it, which is the hundreds place. And the hundreds, if it's 5 or higher, we tell this 4 to round up to a 5. And then everything else becomes zeros. If it's 4 or lower, then this stays a 4, and everything else after becomes 0. Okay? So since this is 4 or lower, it's 0, right? So it's lower than 5. This 4 stays the same. So 4, 4, and then the rest becomes zeros. So we just change these two numbers to zeros. Like that. Okay. The next one. Round 9,969 to the nearest thousand. Okay, once again, this is the thousands place. So we're going to round just before it. Here, I'm going to look up here. This is the thousands place. So we're going to round the place before it's the hundreds. And if it's 5 or higher, which it is, it's 9, we round up. So this 9 tells this 9 to become 10. Okay, so that becomes 10, and everything else after becomes zeros. So these three numbers become zeros. 0, 0, 0, like that. Okay, let's do the next one. Round 1,024 to the nearest 10. Okay, this is the tens place, so the place just before it is the ones, is a 4, and it tells us to round down, right? Remember, if it's 4 or lower, round down. Well, it is 4, so this stays as a 2, and that's why people often have difficulty with the concept of round down, because the 2 stays, but everything else after becomes 0. So we're rounding 24 down to 20. Okay, that's why we call it rounding down. All right, so 1,020. And here's another example. Round to the nearest thousand, so we go to the thousands place, which is the 1, and the spot just before it is 8, tells us to round up, right? If it's 5 or higher, we round up. So this 1 gets rounded up to a 2. So it becomes a 2, and everything else after becomes a 0. So 2, and then 0, 0, 0, like that. All right, round 970,808 to the nearest hundred. Okay, this is the nearest hundred. 800 is right here. It's the nearest hundred, and so that's the place before it. The tens place tells us whether to round up or down. It's 0, so we're rounding down. Okay, think of it this way: is 808 closer to 800 or 900? Well, it's really, really close to 800. Okay, so this 0 tells us, because it's 4 or lower, it's much lower, tells us to round down. So we keep the 8, and everything else after becomes zeros. Okay? All right, round to the nearest millions place. Well, we don't have a millions place. Look, millions place is right here, and it's really a 0. Okay? So now what we're asking is, this is the 100,000 spots just before this. Imagine there's a little 0 here in the millions. Okay, so this is a 2, and we're asking, does a 2 tell the 0 to round up to a 1 or to stay at 0? Well, it tells it to stay at 0, right? So everything else after becomes a 0. So how many zeros is that? That's 6 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like that. And what's that number? Why, it's 0. So we just write 0. We don't have to write all those zeros. Okay, and that's it. That's your answer. Okay, round 1001 to the nearest 10. Well, this is the nearest 10, and the ones place tells us to round up or down, and it's lower than 5. It's lower than 5, so we're going to round down. So that means this stays a 0, and everything else after it becomes 0. Okay, round 1,469 to the nearest thousand. So the hundreds tells the tail. So the 4 tells us it's lower than 5, so it tells us to round down. So the 1 stays the same, everything else after becomes zeros. Alright, round 1002 to the nearest 10. This is nearest 10. The 2 tells us to round down, so 0, 0. Okay, round 1926 to the nearest 1,000. So we look at the hundreds place, and it tells us it's 5 or higher. It's 9, so we round up. Okay? Now what we're asking is 1,926 closer to 1,000 or closer to 2,000? It's closer to 2,000. Okay? The 9 tells us to round the 1 up to a 2, and everything else after becomes zeros. So 2 followed by 3 zeros. And that's it. Alright, so there's a whole bunch of level 1 examples, and stay tuned for level 2 examples. Have a good day.